In the year 3025, humanity's dreams of exploring the stars turned into a nightmare. Centuries ago, when humans first met alien civilizations, they thought it was the start of a new era, time of cooperation and shared knowledge, but that hope faded quickly. The Galactic Council, a powerful group of advanced alien races, grew suspicious of Earth. They watched as humanity developed faster than any other species in history. Humans were unpredictable, emotional, and driven by ambition. To the Council, these traits made them dangerous. One day, the Council announced their decision. Earth was declared an existential threat to the galaxy. Humanity would be exiled from the Milky Way forever. There would be no negotiations, no second chances. Massive ARC ships were sent to evacuate the population, carrying millions of people to a distant planet called Haven 7. It was barely habitable, but offered enough resources for survival. Most humans left reluctantly, some screaming and crying as they boarded the ships. Others refused to abandon their home, choosing instead to stay behind on the dying planet. Among those who stayed were Nathan, Brooks, and Emma Lewis. Nathan was a scientist who had spent his life studying Earth's ecosystems. He couldn't bear the thought of leaving the world he loved, even if it meant facing an uncertain future. Emma, on the other hand, had once been a diplomat working with the Council. She believed in diplomacy and peace until the Council betrayed her trust. Now, she wanted answers. Why had the Council acted so harshly? What proof did they have that humanity posed a danger? As the last ARC ship disappeared into the sky, Nathan stood on the rooftop of an abandoned building, watching the horizon. The air felt heavy, filled with ash and smoke from the Council's sabotage. Before leaving, they had destroyed much of Earth's environment, turning lush forests into barren wastelands and poisoning rivers. Nathan clenched his fists. They didn't just exile us, he muttered to himself. They tried to kill us. Emma joined him moments later, her face pale but determined. She carried a small device in her hand, a communicator salvaged from the ruins. "We're not alone," she said softly. "There are others like us scattered across the planet, and we can still talk to the ARC ships." Her voice trembled slightly, but her eyes burned with determination. "The Council made a mistake. Exiling us won't stop us. We'll survive, and we'll find out why they did this." Nathan nodded slowly. "Surviving isn't enough. We need to fight back. But how?" Emma smiled faintly. "By being smarter than them. By using what they left behind." She pointed toward the crumbling cityscape below. Hidden beneath the ruins were relics of humanity's past technologies, long forgotten or abandoned. If they could find them, they might stand a chance against the Council. Over the next few weeks, Nathan and Emma began gathering others who had chosen to stay. Some were scientists, engineers, or doctors. Others were ordinary people desperate to protect their families. Together, they formed a small community, scavenging for food, water, and supplies, while searching for anything useful left behind by the Council. They found broken drones, damaged satellites, and old research labs buried under layers of debris. One evening, as Nathan examined a dusty blueprint in a makeshift lab, Emma approached him. "What if the Council didn't just fear our technology?" she asked. "What if they feared something else?" Nathan looked up, frowning. "Like what?" Emma hesitated before answering. "Us, our ability to adapt, to rise above anything thrown at us. Maybe they saw themselves in us, and it scared them." Her words lingered in the air, unsettling yet strangely comforting. For the first time since the exile, Nathan felt a spark of hope. If the Council truly feared humanity, then perhaps there was a way to turn that fear into strength. On Haven 7, life was hard. The planet was rocky and cold, with thin air that made breathing difficult. The sky was always a dull gray, and the ground was covered in jagged stones and patches of dry dirt. It wasn't the paradise humanity had hoped for, but it was all they had left. The Ark ships landed one by one, scattering across the surface, each carrying thousands of people. Families huddled together, unsure of what to do next. Supplies were limited, and tensions ran high. Daniel Carter stood at the edge of the settlement, staring at the horizon. He was young, only 24, but already felt older than his years. His family had been separated during the chaos of boarding the Ark ships, and he hadn't seen them since. Now, he worked tirelessly to keep others alive, fixing broken machines and building shelters from scraps of metal. But deep down, he felt empty. Earth was gone, and so was any sense of belonging. Rumors spread quickly among the settlers. Some said there were valuable resources hidden beneath Haven 7's surface, minerals and energy sources that could help rebuild their shattered world. Others whispered about secret weapons left behind by the Galactic Council, tools that could be used to fight back. Daniel didn't know what to believe, but he knew one thing: staying here wasn't enough. Humanity couldn't survive forever on this barren rock. They needed a plan. Back on Earth, Nathan Brooks and Emma Lewis faced their own challenges. The Council's sabotage had left much of the planet uninhabitable. Rivers ran black with pollution, forests were reduced to ash, and the air was thick with toxins. Yet, despite everything, pockets of life remained. Small groups of survivors lived in underground bunkers or hidden valleys, struggling to endure. Nathan and Emma traveled between these communities, gathering information and rallying support. One day, while exploring the ruins of an old research facility, Nathan found something extraordinary. Buried beneath layers of dust and debris was a set of blueprints labeled Project Genesis. It was an ancient initiative designed to terraform planets, turning barren worlds into thriving ecosystems. If they could reactivate it, they might restore Earth's environment and undo some of the damage caused by the Council. More importantly, Project Genesis could also serve as a weapon. Its technology could disrupt the Council's systems, giving humanity a fighting chance. Emma listened intently as Nathan explained his discovery. Her eyes lit up with excitement. "This is it," she said. "This is how we hit back." She immediately began working on a way to communicate with Havens, using old satellites to send encrypted messages. If they could reach the exiles, they might gain allies and resources to make Project Genesis a reality. Meanwhile, on Haven 7, Daniel received one of Emma's messages. At first, he thought it was a trick or a cruel joke, but as he read the words over and over, hope began to grow inside him. The message spoke of a plan to reclaim Earth, of technology that could turn the tide against the Council. For the first time in months, Daniel felt a spark of purpose, but not everyone shared his optimism. Rachel Morgan, a Council sympathizer, argued that fighting back was suicide. "The Council exiled us for a reason," she said during a heated meeting. "We're better off staying here, keeping our heads down, and surviving." Her words angered many, including Mia Harper, a quiet woman who rarely spoke but always seemed to watch everything closely. Mia approached Daniel after the meeting. "I want to help," she said simply. Daniel hesitated, unsure if he could trust her, but something in her eyes told him she was sincere. Together, they began secretly gathering supporters, forming a small resistance group determined to aid Earth's survivors. As days turned into weeks, two separate battles began to take shape, one on Earth, led by Nathan and Emma, and another on Haven 7, driven by Daniel and his growing team. Both sides faced incredible odds, but neither was willing to give up. Slowly, a fragile connection formed between them, bridging the gap between worlds. And though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing became clear: humanity's exile would not be the end of their story. It would be the beginning of a new chapter, one written in defiance of the Council's tyranny. Emma Lewis sat in a dimly lit room, surrounded by the soft hum of old equipment. The satellite dish above her flickered faintly as it connected to distant signals. For weeks, she had been sending encrypted messages into space, hoping someone on Haven 7 would hear her. Finally, there was a response. A voice crackled through the static, weak, but clear enough to understand. It belonged to Daniel Carter. "Is this real?" Daniel's voice asked cautiously. "Are you really still on Earth?" Emma leaned closer to the microphone, her heart pounding. "Yes, we're here," she replied. "My name is Emma, with a group trying to survive and fight back. We need your help." Daniel hesitated before answering. "What kind of help?" Emma explained about Project Genesis, the ancient terraforming technology they had discovered, and how it could restore Earth while also weakening the Council's control. She spoke quickly, knowing time was short. "If we work together, we might have a chance to reclaim what was taken from us." On Haven 7, Daniel listened intently. At first, he wasn't sure if he could trust Emma. The idea of returning to Earth seemed impossible, even reckless. But something in her voice convinced him she was telling the truth. He glanced at Mia Harper, who stood nearby, watching silently. "What do you think?" he asked. Mia tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "It's risky," she said, "but staying here isn't safe either. If the Council finds out we're planning something, they'll crush us." Daniel nodded, turning back to the communicator. He gave Emma his answer. "We'll help, but we need more information. What exactly are you asking us to do?" Emma breathed a sigh of relief. "Gather whatever resources you can, tools, materials, anything useful. And if you can, send someone to meet us. There's a derelict space station orbiting Saturn. It's abandoned, but it still has working systems. We can use it as a meeting point." The call ended, leaving Daniel with a mix of hope and dread. He knew rallying support wouldn't be easy. Many settlers on Haven 7 were exhausted and afraid, unwilling to risk their lives for a cause that seemed hopeless. Rachel Morgan, the Council sympathizer, made things worse by spreading fear. "This is madness," she told anyone who would. "Listen, you'll get us all killed." Despite her warnings, Daniel pressed on. With Mia's help, he began reaching out to others who shared his desire to fight back. Slowly, a small group formed, people tired of living in fear, ready to take a stand. Among them was Liam Torres, a mechanic skilled at repairing broken machines, and Clara Hayes, a farmer who knew how to grow food in the harshest conditions. As the resistance grew, so did their plans. They scavenged parts from abandoned ships and repurposed old tools, creating makeshift weapons and equipment. Daniel worked tirelessly, driven by a newfound sense of purpose. For the first time since arriving on Haven 7, he felt like he was doing something meaningful. Back on Earth, Nathan Brooks continued his work on Project Genesis. Sophie Meyer, the medic who had joined him, proved invaluable. Together, they deciphered complex blueprints and tested damaged machinery. Progress was slow, but every small success brought them closer to their goal. "If we can reactivate this system," Nathan said one evening, pointing to a massive generator, "we can send a signal strong enough to disrupt the Council's surveillance grid." Sophie nodded, though her face showed signs of exhaustion. "And then what? Even if we disable their systems, they'll still come after us." Nathan smiled grimly. "Then we'll be ready." While Nathan and Emma focused on Earth, Daniel prepared for the journey to Saturn. The trip would be dangerous, requiring them to navigate through asteroid fields and avoid Council patrols. But Daniel refused to let fear stop him. As he looked around at the faces of his team, he saw determination in their eyes. They weren't just fighting for themselves, they were fighting for humanity's future. The pieces were falling into place, fragile but promising. Humanity's exile had scattered them across the stars, but it hadn't broken their spirit. From the ruins of Earth to the barren plains of Haven 7, people were coming together, united by a single goal, to prove that the Council's decision was a mistake, one they would regret. Nathan Brooks tightened his grip on the flashlight as he stepped into the dark, crumbling tunnels beneath New York City. The air was thick with dust and the smell of decay. Sophie Meyer followed close behind, her medical bag slung over one shoulder. They had been searching for days, following clues left in the blueprints of Project Genesis. Somewhere deep underground, hidden among the ruins, was the heart of the system, a massive control hub that could restore Earth's environment. The journey wasn't easy. The tunnels were unstable, parts of them collapsing under the weight of time and neglect. Strange sounds echoed around them, dripping water, distant screeches from mutated creatures, and the occasional rumble of shifting debris. Every step felt like a gamble, but Nathan knew they couldn't turn back. If they succeeded, humanity might have a chance to reclaim its home. This way, Nathan said, pointing to a rusted metal door half buried under rubble. He wiped away dirt from a faded label that read Genesis Control Node. Sophie knelt beside him, helping to clear the debris. Together, they pried the door open, revealing a narrow staircase leading downward. At the bottom, they found what they were looking for, a vast chamber filled with rows of dormant machines. Panels lined the walls, covered in blinking lights, and switches encased in layers of grime. In the center stood a towering console, its surface etched with symbols and diagrams. It looked ancient, yet somehow advanced, a relic of humanity's ingenuity before the Council's interference. "We can do this," Sophie whispered, her voice trembling with excitement. She opened her bag and pulled out a handheld scanner, running it over the equipment. "Most of these systems are intact. We just need power." Nathan nodded, already moving toward a nearby generator. He worked quickly, connecting wires and bypassing damaged circuits. Sparks flew as he forced the machine to life, and slowly, the room began to hum with energy. Lights flickered on, casting eerie shadows across the walls. The console screen lit up, displaying lines of code and warnings about system failures. Sophie joined him at the console, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she tried to access the main program. "It's asking for an override code," she said, frowning. "I think it's locked because of the Council's sabotage." Nathan leaned closer, studying the screen. "Maybe we can trick it. Use fragments of the old algorithms to bypass the lock." For hours, they worked together, piecing together bits of code from the blueprints and their own knowledge. It was slow, frustrating work, but finally, the system responded. A map of Earth appeared on the screen, showing areas where the terraforming process could begin. Nathan felt a surge of hope. This was the key to undoing the Council's damage, but their success came at a cost. As the system activated, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Red warning lights flashed, and a robotic voice announced, "Unauthorized. Access detected. Security protocols initiated." "What does that mean?" Sophie asked, panic creeping into her voice. Nathan scanned the screen, his jaw tightening. "It means the Council knows we're here. They must have surveillance tied into the system." Before they could react, the ground shook violently. Dust rained down from the ceiling as part of the tunnel collapsed, blocking their exit. Nathan grabbed Sophie's arm, pulling her toward a secondary passage marked on the blueprint. "We need to move. Now." They ran through twisting corridors, the sound of collapsing tunnels chasing them. Behind them, they heard the unmistakable roar of mutated beasts drawn by the noise. Nathan glanced back, spotting glowing eyes in the darkness. "Keep going," he shouted, urging Sophie forward. Finally, they burst into the open air, gasping for breath. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Nathan looked back at the entrance to the tunnels, now sealed by rubble. They had escaped, but barely. Still, he allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. They had reactivated Project Genesis. Now, all they needed was time and allies to make it work. Nathan turned to Sophie. "We need to send a message to Emma. Tell her the signal is ready." Sophie nodded, already pulling out her communicator. Despite the danger, they both knew this was only the beginning. The Council had underestimated humanity's resilience, and soon they would learn just how big a mistake that was. The signal from Earth reached Haven 7 like a whisper, cutting through the silence. It was faint, almost drowned out by the static of space, but it carried a message that ignited hope among the settlers. Daniel Carter listened to it in the dim light of his makeshift command center, his fingers gripping the edges of the table. The voice on the other end belonged to Emma Lewis, calm yet urgent. "The system is online," Emma said. "We've reactivated Project Genesis. If we can upload its algorithms into the Council's flagship, we might be able to disable their surveillance grid and buy ourselves time. But we need your help. Meet us at the Saturn station within 48 hours. Daniel replayed the message. Twice, his mind racing. The Saturn station was dangerous territory, close enough to Council patrols to risk detection, but far enough to serve as a temporary refuge. Getting there would require precision and luck. He turned to Mia Harper, who stood nearby, her arms crossed. "What do you think?" he asked. Mia didn't answer right away. Her sharp eyes scanned the faces of the others gathered in the room: Liam Torres, Clara Hayes, and a few others who had joined their cause. Finally, she spoke. "It's risky, but it's our best shot. If we don't act now, we'll lose this chance." Daniel nodded. "Then we move. Prep the ships and gather supplies. We leave at dawn." As the group dispersed, Rachel Morgan appeared at the doorway. Her expression was cold, her arms folded tightly across her chest. "You're making a mistake," she said sharply. "This will only provoke the Council. They'll come after us with everything they've got." Daniel met her gaze, his voice firm. "Sitting here won't save us. If we want a future, we have to fight for it." Rachel shook her head, frustration clear in her tone. "And what happens when you fail? What happens to the rest of us?" Before Daniel could respond, Mia stepped forward. "If we succeed, everyone benefits. If we fail, well, staying here isn't exactly safe, either." Rachel glared at her, but said nothing more. She turned and walked away, leaving behind an uneasy tension. The next morning, the small fleet of repurposed ARC ships lifted off from Haven 7's surface. The journey to Saturn was tense, every hour bringing them closer to potential disaster. Council patrols roamed the area, their sleek vessels moving with purpose. Daniel and his team stayed hidden, navigating through asteroid fields and using the debris as cover. On the flagship, Liam worked tirelessly to keep the engines running smoothly, while Clara monitored the ship's systems. Despite their differences, the group functioned like a well-oiled machine, each person playing a crucial role. Even Mia, who rarely spoke, proved invaluable, her sharp instincts helping them avoid detection. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Nathan Brooks and Sophie Meyer prepared for the arrival of Daniel's team. They sent updates to Emma, who coordinated the operation from a secure location. The plan was simple, but perilous. Nathan and Sophie would remain on Earth to oversee Project Genesis, while Emma traveled to the Saturn station to meet Daniel and deliver the final piece of the Pazula data chip containing the override codes needed to infiltrate the Council's flagship. As the ARC ships approached the Saturn station, Daniel felt a mix of fear and determination. The derelict structure loomed ahead, its skeletal frame floating silently against the backdrop of the planet's rings. It was eerie, almost haunting, but it was also their best chance to unite humanity's scattered forces. When they docked, Emma was already waiting, her face pale but resolute. She handed Daniel the data chip, her hands trembling slightly. "This is it," she said. "Everything depends on us now." Daniel took the chip, feeling its weight in his palm. For a moment, he allowed himself to imagine what success might look like: a united humanity, free from the Council's control. But he knew the road ahead would be dangerous. The Council wouldn't give up without a fight. "We'll make it work," he said finally, his voice steady. For Earth. For all of us. As the group prepared to execute the next phase of their plan, one thing was clear. Humanity's survival depended not just on technology or strategy, but on the courage of those willing to stand against impossible odds.